So culture is all about how you respond to adversity, how you handle um, you know situations that come up that needs true attention in terms of discipline, and how you hold people accountable to that standard consistently. It's a living, breathing organism that needs nurturing every single day. The moment that you take for granted that culture is set and it's thriving and it's right, you don't need to pay attention to it, that's when it turns bad.
Welcome to the Prosper Brief, the show dedicated to elevating the future of the food service and hospitality industry. I am your host, Jeremiah Wynn, the content and marketing manager here at Prosper, and today we have a very special guest. It's none other than Eddie George. Eddie George has gone from the football field to acting to wealth management and now coaching, and he is proof that you can be a great leader in every facet of life. Today we're going to be discussing how setbacks and discipline can shape great leaders, and Eddie is the perfect person to have this conversation with. You guys stay tuned. Let's get it going. Eddie, man, welcome to the show. How are you doing, man?
Jeremiah, I'm great. I'm blessed. Great to see another day. God
Yeah,
has blessed us, and man, my heart is filled with so much gratitude that I have an opportunity to share my story, talk about where I am in my life, how I got to this place, and hopefully whoever's watching this can learn, can grow, can be inspired, can be challenged. Uh, Hopefully this is thought provoking, entertaining, all of the
yeah.
above, so people can begin to prosper for their dreams and goals and desires, and hopefully inspire others too, man. So it's an honor to be on this deal with you, brother.
Man, I'm really glad to have you on here because I've seen you on a lot of other things. And we're not going to be talking about football. We're going to be talking about just the strategies that you use and things that you've gone through in your life that have helped you to be a better leader, that have helped you to constantly refine who you are, refine your talents, refine your
Mhm.
gifts to be the best. So I'm really excited about this just to hear things beyond the football, the
Mm.
mindset of Eddie George. I'm really trying to get into
Yeah,
that.
let's do it, man. Let's delve in.
Okay, Cam. So my first question for you, man. So I saw that you had a 1.3 GPA in high school, and then
Yeah.
you ended up going to a military school. At that time, did you see it as a setback or did you recognize it as a turning point?
At that particular time in my life, oh, it was a setback. It was all a setback 'cause I couldn't see beyond the forest. I didn't know what was in the unknown. What was comfortable for me was um just barely making it. I was living mediocre, and my grandmother did the best she can do raising me. My grandfather, my sisters, my mother. I grew up in a single parent household, and the habits that were created in my grandmother's house wasn't the habits of a champion, to say the least. I wasn't studying. I was barely working out. I had this big dream of playing at the highest level as far as college football, but didn't know how to get there, didn't have a blueprint for it. Uh it was a tough environment for me to find, my strengths, and find out what I was really good at and how I could be more than just a football player, so to speak. So my mother pulled me out of Abington, put me in Fort King Military Academy, and initially, I fought against it. I cried. I called everybody known to man to get my mom to help change my mother's mind to get me to stay in Philadelphia so I can be the starting running back at Abington High School. But she wasn't buying it. She said, "Listen, I've seen enough. I can't allow you to go another day failing in class, talking back to your teachers, walking out the classroom when you feel like it, being a problem in society." And I wasn't a bad kid, but I was heading in that direction. So at Fort Union, I thought my dream was over in terms of getting to a Division One college. But I quickly realized that this was the perfect spot for me to be in, to get my grades right, um, to work out, to put myself through some tough workouts to get bigger, stronger, faster. Realized that I was the perfect place to get recruited by some of the best schools in the country. I didn't know that UVA was right around the corner at Charlottesville, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, all came to Fort Union Military Academy to see athletes. So before you going to ask me the question, it was an observation of, man, hold on, I'm in the right place. Now it's up to me to make this thing happen. And it's not going to happen because I'm here. I got to put in the work.
Wow. Wow. So, because my question was, when did you see beyond what you couldn't see? And it seemed like as you were there,
Mhm.
you're seeing these schools coming and visiting. So it became real like, wait, this is actually way better, a much better place. But
Yeah.
I have to give, you have to probably give props to your mom because
Oh,
she kind of saw it. She saw what you didn't see.
yeah, she did. And my mother was instrumental in that move. I didn't know that she was doing this at the particular time. She didn't consult with me. She just packed my bags up and said, "We're leaving 2 weeks to Fort Union." And I didn't say anything to her the entire time. I was pissed off, man, because I figured she didn't know what she was doing. She was pulling me out of Abington. I promised I was gonna get my grades together, but I wasn't. I had no intentions on doing that. I was satisfied getting D's. So when I got to Fort Union, it was guys like Lee Green, God bless his soul, who was a year ahead of me. Lee was 6'3", 225 pounds, was fast, agile, an exceptional student, a straight A student. When I got there, he was the starting running back, along with a guy by the name of Keith Burton, who was 6'2", 225, ran a 4.5, getting recruited by everybody in the country. This is on the prep level. There's two different teams. There's a postgraduate team and the prep team. Prep team is a high school team. The postgraduate team are guys that have graduated high school but are there for a year to get their grades right or to get their test scores and then go into their colleges. So this prep team was loaded with talent. And I'm like, oh man, this is eye-opening. Like I got work to do. So I learned from those guys. Lee was a model student, got straight A's, getting recruited by teams like Notre Dame and UCLA and Wake Forest and North Carolina. Same thing with Lee with Keith Burton. So I didn't play my junior year. I had to sit back and watch how they worked, how they pushed through the summer's heat, how they had to how they balanced being a cadet, a student, and an athlete. And that was the biggest lesson that I learned was how to be disciplined in those key areas, how to be a better leader in the barracks versus a better leader on the football field. So all my lessons were learned in the barracks where life happened and with the other cadets and watching them work and watching them grind, the other postgraduates that were there like Ernest Dixon and Craig Hodges. I mean, these names probably don't mean anything to you now, but back then these guys were going to Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Georgia, Andre Booker. I mean, guys that were fast, physical, and I had no chance of going to those places. I had to look at D2, D3 schools the way I was going. So in that environment it was highly competitive. And if you wasn't working out, if you wasn't striving to be the best, man, you was getting left in the dust. So that was woof. When I look back on it now, that was the perfect place for me to swim and to get my into sharpen iron. I mean, just imagine, a kid that has ability, has talent, but he's not the fastest, not the strongest, but he has a heart full of ambition and wants to be the best. So I had to go in there and get tough. I had to get tough. I had to get mentally, physically, spiritually tougher. And I owe a lot of credit to my mom and Coach Sullivan and the people at Fort Union for helping me develop at that point in time because that was the impetus for where I am in my life today.
So that I love that. I used to teach. So I taught in the inner city in Reno, Nevada. And I had the student, my favorite student, loved him, but just completely misguided. He ended up lying on me to his mom, and she came ready to fight me and stuff like that. And then, like, fast forward 4 years, and I would try to pour into this kid. He just nothing really stuck. 4 years later, I'm working in a jail as a chaplain, and I see him mopping the floor because he got in jail. And I called his name, he ignored me, and then he later apologized to me. But the one thing that I realized, it is really difficult to pour into certain people who, because of their environment, because of their influences, because of the people directly around them, uh, it is hard for them to see beyond that, right? So now, as you're a coach, how do you get your students to see beyond their environment, to see beyond the mindset that they were raised up in, to really pursue and be successful in their areas?
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I'm in a period where I'm doing a lot of doing some self-reflection and introspection in terms of how I can take my coaching ability to the next level. Um, and in that period, I've noticed that my temperament is studying and temperature, temperament and temperature, and learning my student athletes, understanding of who they are in terms of their temperament. And then based off of understanding who they are in terms of their temperament, I can then push up the temperature, turn the heat up or turn it down. 'Cause everybody's coached differently. And that to me takes the relationship, the time to get to know these kids. And it's hard because there's 103 of them and there's only a certain amount of time in a day that I can do it. So I have to be very creative in terms of getting to know, well, how do they operate? How are they? How do they handle success? How do they handle failure? How do they love school? Do they go to school? What are their habits? So really challenging myself to understand the kid and coach that person and coach the desires and dreams and goals that he has within himself to a high standard and not wavering off of that one bit. So I've learned as a coach that it takes a great deal of grace, patience, compassion, discipline, love. It all comes from a place of love because I'm going to discipline you. If I'm going to, make you do physical punishment for not going to class, it comes from a place of love. It's to get your attention that this world is an unkind place and you've got to learn how to navigate through it and you're going to be met with adversity, and when you are smacked in the face with adversity, how are you going to respond? And your response needs to be a positive one, so this thing that I've been doing over time, you talk about refine, like I'm always in that state of refinement, but in that state of refinement, it's that process of the burning away of all the things that no longer serve you or serve me. And that takes a lot of heat. So when you turn that temperature up, it's going to be very uncomfortable. It's going to burn away all the stuff that no longer serves you. And you're going to get yourself at at your purest form. And that takes steadfastness, just the persistence behind that. So to persist without exception. So I'm constantly, you know, looking for ways to motivate, to educate, to inspire, to hold my team, to these kids accountable at the highest level. Yeah,
I love that. Study temperament and temperature. So me and my wife, we
yeah.
took counseling last year, and we took a temperament test. Me, my wife, my son, and we realized my son's temperament, the way that he was pretty much created to be how he was completely opposite of how I was raising him. So the things that I would treat him and things that I would do and force him to do, it was completely opposite. So after he took the temperament test and I understood him better, it allowed me to nurture that to where he could be successful because of the
Mm,
pressure that I'm not putting on him. You know what I mean? So like
yeah.
it's great that you're doing that, especially when you do have 103 kids. But my next
Mhm.
question is, have you ever had to move past somebody because they just couldn't get it together as far as they're just either too difficult or
Yeah.
they refuse to be disciplined into the structure that you're setting?
Well, I will say, I never give up on a kid. And what I mean by that is I'm always going to be their coach. Anybody that comes across my desk or comes across into our program, I'm always going to be there for them, even if they transfer out and they're no longer with the program. I'm always going to be coach to them. I'm never going to shut that door. My door is always open. Now, we may come to a place where this Tennessee State may not be for you. It's not for everybody. It's going to weed you out and it's going to expose you. And if you can't handle that, that's fine. But I'm never going to not, you know, um, uh, be available to a kid that has it, that's searching for advice or wants to change his ways or looking to improve, to get better, or needs an ear to listen to. That's never going to stop for me. But yes, we have situations. I've had situations where I had to say goodbye. It was necessary endings for both of us, because in order for you to get blessed, I have to let you go so you can understand, okay, this was a blessing, it's taken away. Now, how do I respond to that? So sometimes you have to have necessary endings so that can be a blessing for somebody else so they can realize their full potential. You know what I'm saying? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
What advice would you give to professionals who are managers, leaders, executive CEOs who do struggle with the idea of learning the temperament and the temperature of your employees? Like, what advice would you give to them to where that would enable them to be more effective as leaders in learning their followers and their employees?
Well, there's different ways to doing it. The way that I've chosen to do it is be be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slower to anger. It's a proverb. I can't remember which proverb it is, but I live by that. And what I mean by that is I first come and the elephant in the room is I am a laid back guy. I have a very laid back demeanor. You know, 9 times out of 10, that's who I am. I'm even kill. I have the ability to turn up the heat and get rowdy, and I have the ability to be laid back and be very quiet. And those moments when I'm quiet, I observe. I am studying. I'm studying temperament. I'm studying people to see how I can connect with them. So I would advise leaders to connect with people on their staff, with their employees or students or whoever that may be, your customer, to really connect and to really listen, and not just to wait for someone to finish what they have to say and then add into it, but to really follow up, to really listen to what they have to say. That to me is everything. Once you connect with someone and you understand what it is that they want, then it's time to be understood on how we're going to get there together. Because I believe in collaboration. I believe in um, delegation, and I believe that this is our thing. This is our team. This is our program. This is our business. Uh, and I need input and feedback from you for us to grow, for us to develop, for us to get better. I will have the final say on some things. There will be some non-negotiables. There will be some things that we're not going to debate about. It's going to be a certain way because this is the vision that I have. But I would advise one, that first brick laid before you go making hardcore declarations and say, "Hey, this is how we're going to do it," and it's my way or the highway. That's great, but first understand and then be understood, because there are some components of a business or a program that actually may work. And you might want to say, "Hmm, you know what? Let me keep that in place, but here are the areas that I can change and add value to, or deplete, or get rid of, or bring it all together to consolidate it." You know what I'm saying? So first, seek to understand and be understood, and that understanding is could be a year, could be 2 years, could be a month, could be a week, but I'm more or less, going to go in to listen first and understand, then to be understood, then be understood.
You said the elephant in the room is that you're laid back, but when I look at
Mhm.
your documentary and hear you talk about your battles with Ray Lewis, you seem very aggressive,
Oh
like
yeah,
just super assertive, dominant, alpha.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
did you have to go from a transition from player to coach to where you had to turn that laid back side on more than it was, or were you always this laid back?
No, I've always been this way. But people that know me know that I can turn up in a minute. And I'm a Libra. I'm on the scale. I can either be extremely nice or I can be extremely mean. Or so it's a balance that I always strike. So I'm neither. I never. I don't get too high or too low. I just try to maintain that. I don't. It's nothing that I say I'm going to be. this particular coach. This is who I am. This is who I am as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as an actor. Um, I'm going to always, be real in those moments because I found that if you're always on a 10 and you're always highly energetic and I mean, which is great, and you should be, and I am, but if you're always yelling and screaming and to get your point across and MFing guys and this and that, that may work for a short period of time, but that burnout, it's like, okay, you start to tune that out. So for me, I learned to, hey, I'm gonna be reasonable, sensible, but if I go to a 10, which is rare, oh, I'm gonna get your attention with that. It's not, there's no question. I'm going to impose my will on you spiritually, you know, and that's a different realm. So you understand the difference between, okay, I got some leeway here, but with coach is dead serious on an issue where it's a non-negotiable, it's one of the non-negotiables that he has, it's going to be met with force and you're not going to like it. You're not going to like me, and I'm cool with that. I'm fine with that. But it's done from a place of love. I'm going to call you up. I'm not going to call you out. And me calling you out, calling you up is a process of me plucking you out, putting you under that light, putting that heat on you, turning that heat up, and refine you through the process that I need you to be. And if you can't handle that heat, then it's not for you. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to be the best, if you want to be elite, if you want to be great, if you want to be a champion, that's a whole nother lifestyle. And I'm showing you a lifestyle. I'm showing you a process, not a bunch of drills that you do or practice. This is a lifestyle that we are living to become champions. And you have to embrace that.
So going from being a player to a coach, was there a mindset shift that had to happen?
Well, there was a huge gap in time I didn't go straight from the field to being a coach. It was 15 years of me being developed to be a coach. Did Never thought I would be a coach, didn't desire to do it. I did other things. I was acting, got my master's in business, started my wealth management company. I'm doing my thing, loving life is that. So coaching was never on the radar for me. So I came to it differently. I came to it with a mature mind. I said, okay, it's calling me, so I'm going to come to it with all the tools that I have from being an actor, an athlete, a teacher, a wealth manager, and bring that to the table of being a coach. So my mindset was a little different. It wasn't just, oh, read, respond, and go. It's a little different than that. I bring a little element of every part of me from my ability to share stories, to tell stories, to inspire, to listen as an actor, to teach, from a wealth management perspective of being an asset and a liability. So here are the things that you need to do to be an asset to this team. If you are a liability, this is the you relate, you don't wear the right stuff, you're not listening, you're a liability. And here's where we're going to meet the road. Liabilities get eliminated and assets continue to grow and be developed. So I bring all that element to the table as a head coach, and it's been very interesting because it's like I felt very comfortable being in the seat, and because I understood it from different perspectives, different hats, and not every decision I've made has been the right one. I've made some terrible mistakes, learned a lot of life lessons, and will continue to do just that. But I understand it now, like in terms of, okay, that's a lesson, for me to learn, to grow, to be developed, and not to make that same mistake twice. So, yes, I am a different person than I was as a player, and I brought something completely different to the table 15 years later to becoming a coach that had prepared me for this position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay.
You said that you were not expecting to be a coach that wasn't on your plan. And I know a lot of leaders, they struggle with self-doubt when they're stepping into a new challenge. So what moment in your career taught you how to silence the doubt and just trust this process?
Mhm. That's so good, man. A lot. Doubt is always going to be there, and anxiety is always going to creep into any dream, any goal anybody has. So it really comes down to faith for me. And I don't like to get into cliches. And if you're a coach, you always have these acronyms, right? And faith for me has been an acronym, and it really eliminates and is combative to the doubt and the fear that creeps in when you're pursuing something. So the F is for focus. When Peter was in the boat and Jesus was out in the water, and he told Peter to come out. Peter stepped out of that boat on faith. And as Peter began to walk, he kept his focus on Jesus, and he was walking toward him on water. it Peter only began to sink when he looked at everything else around him. He looked at the wind. He saw the wind. You can't see wind, but he saw the wind. It was blowing that hard. The waves, the water, it all then he began to sink. So the focus is so key. Keeping your eyes on your God-given dream. Not your dream, but the God-given, the purpose, the will that God has for you. And that's developing a relationship with Christ, relationship with God, and getting that vision, the focus on that. So I'm gonna show you something real quick. I have a vision board that I've had up for 15 years, or not 15, for 5 years. Okay. And real quick, this is my vision board. All right. It's in my office. It has a bunch of pictures on it. It's very detailed, it's intentional. My family's in the middle. Things I wanted to accomplish as an actor, things I wanted to do, my lifestyle, play golf. The time represents the time that I have is very intentional. The style, the entrepreneurship, all the things I wanted to accomplish on this board. And this keeps my focus, right? I put this down for a second. So that F, the focus of faith, is what am I focusing on? You know, the habits that I create with my focus. I get up every morning and I'm reading my word, reading and getting deeply rooted in the word of God. So it keeps my spiritual man fed. So when doubt comes, I can combat that with the word of God. I can combat that with something else, an affirmation or something along the lines. So that's very important. The A is for attitude, positive attitude. Adversity is going to happen. Things are going to come up. Setbacks will happen, losses are going to happen, failure is going to happen. That's a part of the process. How you respond to that failure is what matters most. A positive attitude. When I left Philadelphia, went to Fork Union, I had a bad attitude. I had to shift my mindset and realize this was the best thing for me, and I ran toward that thing with a positive attitude every single day, and great things began to manifest and came to fruition for me. The I is intentionality, waking up with an intention to improve as a person every single day, a person in your career and your family life and your social life and your physical life, being intentional about it every single day. When I go into my meetings, I'll ask one of my players, what is your intention on getting better today? Give me one thing. And it better not be something that's cliche as, oh, I just want to get better. How are you going to get better? Oh, I want to work on my 5 step drop as a quarterback. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to go out 5 minutes beforehand. I'm going to work on the counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, getting that back step drop, making sure I drive through, just being very detailed about how you're going to get better that particular day. Because that's what I do, as a coach. The T is for trust, trusting the process, trusting the word of God, trusting that you're going to get through. I mean, trusting God's timing, trusting everything about that you're going through. Okay. And and then trusting, for us, it's trust the brotherhood, trust your training, and trust that it is your time to be successful in whatever it is we're going to be during this time period. And the last one is H. It's help. It's helping others. Just when you're praying for something that you want, like I'm praying for healing, I'm praying for wholeness, I'm praying for a breakthrough in my career, I'm praying for financial gain. Pray for somebody else, help someone else, be the answer that you seek, and then watch what comes to you. And then encouraging and empowering others and raising them up to that standard. So for me, that's been the main thing. That's the cornerstone of how I've operated my entire life, is operating by faith, to walk by faith and not by sight.
Man, that's powerful. That's really powerful. One thing you mentioned in there was trust, and trust is so vital. We
Oh
know
yeah.
that trust is essential in any high performance team, whether in sports or business. What strategies have you used to build trust with your team? And
Mm.
how can leaders create a culture where people believe in the mission that they have?
Again, it goes back to before you win a championship of any type, you've got to master those three ships: relationship, ownership, and leadership. The relationship piece is so important. That's how you really build trust, and getting to know the person, really understanding that person, and vice versa, and not just knowing them just to say, "Hey, let's win a championship," but knowing them as people. How can we serve each other? Iron sharpens iron, and that really comes down to that. The next one is ownership. Is taking ownership of where you are, really owning the fact that I might not be in a great place, but I'm not going to use external factors and blame it on somebody else. It's going to be on me to figure that out. How can I do that? you know and the leadership portion is to lead by example, to not just talk about it but be it. There's a great poem by Langston Hughes called "Live Your Creed." The first two stanzas: "I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day." So not seeing an actual sermon, but seeing somebody live the sermon, living it out. So that's important. So I think, and I'm hoping I'm answering your question, I'm going on these tangents, but I think that when you're building those relationships, you're building trust. It all stems in that margin, of really building relationships and understanding people. Because I've been burned, I've been taken advantage of financially in relationships, and it's hard when somebody that you love, you know, goes against your trust. And so it's life lessons, and you have to be vulnerable and have enough courage to allow yourself to love and to trust someone and be willing to get burned by it, to understand that I gotta be a, be a better person of discernment when it comes to working with people, because you're not going to figure it out. Like, I've had coaches that I thought was the right guy but wasn't the right guy. I've dated women that I thought was the right one but really wasn't the right one. And that's okay. It's fine. It's gonna happen. You gotta go through those emotions, but be willing to step into the unknown and allow yourself to fail, to get hurt, to love, to live, because that's what you're doing. You're living, and that's what it's all about. And that's just the whole trust factor that goes into it. Stepping out there in faith, and understanding that, hey, if you get burned in a relationship, it's going to be, it's meant for good than it is for evil and destroying you. It's something good is going to come out of it. So that's the whole mantra, and the whole idea of having faith is, it goes back to having the great attitude and the focus, and a cylindrical world that you live in when you operate by faith, because you're always moving in defense, and you have your offense. You're always, so it's an always evolving thing.
Yeah, and it seems like when you are intentional, right? You're intentional with your relationship, what you're doing. When someone does hurt you, like you have to expect that people aren't perfect, right? A lot of times it
Right.
seems like people think that, oh, if I have my mindset right, if I do right by people, if I'm nice to people, I'm good to people, things are just gonna happen to me. And I feel like growing up, no one tells you that you can be perfect and still lose. You can be the best running back ever and still never win a championship. A lot of times we feel like 1 + 1 = 2, and sometimes it just doesn't. So what do you say?
Mhm.
Like, what would be like the key strategy for those people who have been burned, who have trust issues, and now they lead with resentment? what is one thing that you can give to them that
Mm.
they can take and like really use to go forward?
I had a conversation with somebody about this the other night, and it's something that is simple yet complex. Okay, it's so simple, and we hear about it and we know it. And you know, if you've been in the Word, you've gone to church, you've heard it time and time and time again. Forgiveness, forgiveness, really forgiving somebody, and God will put you in a situation where you're going to learn how to forgive. You know, and God's prayer is just our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as you forgive us. So if we're not forgiving other people, our Father's not going to forgive us in terms of the wrongdoings that we've done. So to have that compassion to um forgive someone, but not be stupid to say, okay, I forgive you, let's do it again. But really forgive them so you can live, so you don't have that burden on your heart. So you can be free. And that can be in different forms. You can have a direct conversation with someone and let them know how they've hurt you. You can write a letter and never send it. You can know in your heart that you've forgiven this person. You can say, listen, you hurt me in the past or whatever situation it was, but I forgive you. Whatever you were going through at that particular time, it was brought out on me. So it's releasing that part. And that's the part that I've learned as a coach, that I have to have grace, compassion, and use forgiveness as a tool because I wasn't perfect at one time. You know what I'm saying? And it takes away from these, you have your non-negotiables, but there's a level of understanding that there's an opportunity to teach about, hey, you made a mistake, and let's learn from it, and let's grow from it. So I would say definitely forgiveness.
Well, that's such a powerful tool. I hear Steph Curry say all the time, like you have to have short term memory, and to me, that's like you have to forgive yourself for
Mhm.
your own mistakes that you're making.
That's right. That's
A
right.
lot of times it
That's right.
seems like leaders do hold on to certain things that they make, and it may cause you to become stagnant,
Hmm.
but along with this idea of trust, there's also this idea of burnout that happens with a lot of people who are chasing a goal, chasing a dream. So my question is, how do you balance high expectations with long-term motivation as you're
Hmm.
leading? Because it's not a 40-yard dash. Like
That's
it
right.
could take years to get to where we're trying to do.
No
So how do
question.
you balance that and keep from being burnt out?
Rest. You got to take time to rest. I was one that no one was going to outwork me. I'm going to work 24/7, 365, and till the wheels fall off, and that doesn't work. You've got to take time to decompress. You've got to take time to walk away from whatever it is that you're doing or pursuing, and give it time to marinate and to let it breathe and go do something else. So going on vacations, finding a hobby that's completely different from what you're trying to do. Like I roller skate, I golf, I DJ, I'm always pursuing something fun. I box because it's something that takes my mind away from my job and my career. And you'll be surprised that things will come to you in in those moments. So I would suggest, you know what, take about an intentional break from your work, an intentional break from social media, intentional break from always listening to a podcast that's talking about how to make money or something in your career. Pick up a book and read a romantic novel or something inspirational, and you'll be surprised that the things that you're asking questions about or pursuing or seeking is going to speak to you. You'll find the answers in doing something completely different, but you're not working. And that's where the burnout happens, is that, you've got to take intentional time to rest and decompress and rejuvenate and renew your body, your mind, your spirit. The biggest gains when you work out are not in the weight room or not at the kitchen table. Is you've done the work in the weight room, you've eaten correctly. It's that 8 to 9 hours of rest that you're getting, that your body is replenishing, That's where the work happens. That's where the growth happens in that rest period. Then you wake up in the morning, you go, oh man, I got abs. That was the work that you put in, but you got the rest. But if you don't get quality rest, it's going to fight against you. So it's so important that you renew your mind and your spirit consistently and daily. And for me, what I do, I'm still trying to do it myself. I'm always working. I say, listen, I'm going to build out 4 or 5 days where I go to Mexico, take my golf clubs, my books and cigars, and go be and do whatever the hell I want to do and just relax. My thing is going by the water, going by the beach. I love it because I'm able to just to decompress and be and not focus on that. So I would suggest that you be intentional about getting those breaks and enjoying life for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely one who advocates for just rest because I've seen it my whole life where whether it be my parents or even myself, where you're just going and you just hit this breaking point. But
Hmm.
for from a mental standpoint, those moments where you are under pressure and there's no time for rest, what strategies could you give us that helps you to think critically and come up with an idea and a solution, like when the pressure's right there, you have no time for rest?
All right. I'll take a moment. I'll never rush into a decision unless it's extremely urgent. Um, I give myself the time and the grace to think things through. I try not to make emotional decisions in in that time. I try to give myself at least a day or a few hours to really think on it and that I'm not making an emotional decision. That's very important for me. So giving myself the time again to detach from a situation and to let it breathe for a moment, whether that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 seconds, allow discernment in the spirit to come in and help guide you in these decisions. So that's what I do on a consistent basis. So if I have to make a quick decision, I try to come from a place of discernment. That's what I rely on.
So, one thing that's cool about football is there's a lot of different coaches, right? You have
Hmm.
the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, special teams coach. You have like essentially you have trusted advisors who you trust that, hey, I have the overall vision of where we're going, and I need you to put your department there. So, what would you say to leaders who are struggling with how to build a team and an infrastructure that's going to help them be successful throughout the organization?
That's good, man. I would say what I've done and what I've done this year is um I compartmentalize everything that I do. And an example of that is stuff that I've worked on. Like as an example, this is for a team that I was, interviewing for, and I break everything down. So from players, coaches, roster management, schedule, sports performance, equipment, athletic training, recovery. So I break all that down, then I grade it. From five being the absolute best to one that I can do without. And I'm very honest about that. And I'll get feedback from each department in terms of how would you grade the coaches, players, and so forth, blah, blah, blah. So I'm able to assess, okay, he's a five, this is a two, three, four. How can I improve that area or eliminate it? So that's kind of, the way that I've kind of done things and continue to do things to assess the situation to make certain parts better. Um, and with my coaches, it's constantly teaching them the vision, you know, the culture that you have to have. Culture is not just putting a bunch of great words and cliches on the wall, family, faith, and football, and be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's cool, but what are you doing to make that happen? So culture is all about how you respond to adversity, how you handle um, you know situations that come up that needs true attention in terms of discipline, and how you hold people accountable to that standard consistently. It's a living, breathing organism that needs nurturing every single day. The moment that you take for granted that culture is set and it's thriving and it's right, you don't need to pay attention to it, that's when it turns bad. That's when bad habits creep in, and doubt, and fear, and discouragement, and delusion comes into play. So it's those things that you have to constantly stay on top of and teach your coaches. So like every year I have a coaches retreat. And at that retreat, we focus on something of what it means to be on the energy bus or the power of a positive team along those themes. And we work on that endlessly. And I know it's a pain in the ass, could be, painstaking details involved, and all they want to do is coach. But the only way you're going to be a better coach and to teach with passion and to teach. Um, with energy and sustainability in the way I want you to teach is by going this way and understanding the way that it needs to be done. So that's what I would say is as a leader, you have to set the North Star in terms of how things are going to go, how you're going to approach things, what the expectations are on a day-to-day basis, that cutting corners is not an option. I look for solution seekers. I don't look for complainers. If you complain, complain by yourself. But when you come to my desk, say, here's the problem and here's the solution, the three solutions to this problem. So we don't have time to bicker and complain and dwell in things that are not going to push us forward. We've got to be moving forward. So that's what I would say.
Okay, I like that. So you mentioned adversity. So my question is, what keeps you up at night?
Uh,
Are there any fears that you have where it's like it's almost like just the little thought in the back of your mind?
of course. Of course. I mean, I think we all do. I think, for me, it's what happens if we don't win this year? I'm always thinking like, man, this could be a setback. What does this happen? So I don't get, and I cut the noise off at that point because that's again, a distraction that's may or may not ever come true. And if it does happen that way, I'll have an answer will be provided. That's where faith comes in. So what keeps me up at night now is how do I improve? Am I improving in the right areas I need to be? Am I ignoring certain things? Am I dotting every I and crossing every T? Um, making sure that we're headed in the right direction from a philosophical standpoint on all three phases. That's offense, defense, special forces. Um, thinking of how I can inspire this team, on a day-to-day basis. So all those things just really keeps me up in a great way, and that's why I try to write it down and to get in the habit of writing things down at night so I can just put it on the paper, know it's going to be there. I can revisit in the morning, and it gives me a peace of mind that I can sleep throughout at night.
What do you say to leaders who they have this fear and they just brush it off? They don't tackle it or they don't figure out how to get ahead of it right now. They just try to like push it off. What do you say to those type of leaders?
Now, give me an example of a fearful situation that they're putting on.
Okay, so for example, let's say that you need to fire somebody who's your good friend
Mhm.
because they're doing something sketchy, but they're your good friend, so you don't know how to navigate that. So they're just going to keep going and going until they
Right.
finally get the courage to, do something about it. What do you say to those type of leaders who do lead more passively?
I can understand that situation. I think at some point you have to address that. Um, there are times when you want to give yourself time to think things through and not be emotional about it. Then there are times when you have to be fast, direct, and fair. And I've been in that position where I had to fire a good friend, and I had to ask myself the question: what is the ultimate vision for this? What is the mission here? It's to provide our kids with the best resources and to put them in the best situation that they can thrive as people, to reach their full potential. And is this person helping me get there? So ultimately, the mission supersedes my relationship, the way I feel about them, because it's not the right fit. and you have to have tough conversations. And sometimes just saying, hey, I value you and I like you as a person, but this situation is just not right for either one of us. And I'm going to go in a different direction. And that's tough. I have to go a different direction because it's not fitting the vision that I have for this organization or this team and going forward. So, you can let that thing just fester and not address it, and that's only going to manifest and bring dissension and confusion and inconsistency in your organization from a leadership standpoint, because the other people see it that this guy is not the right guy. He needs to get going. So you've got to address it. I mean, that's what I would say. At some point, you're going to have to meet that head on, and that has to be your number one priority, whether it's bringing him in your office or her in your office and having a conversation of, here are my expectations. If you're not meeting these expectations, if you're not happy here, we have to change this. This is what I need to see. If I don't see it by this time, it's understood. I'm going to make a change. That's what's going to happen. So, you know, I'm learning myself through that. So yeah, that's a tough one. Great question.
Thank you. That is a tough one because we all go through these situations where when you do have a big heart, and especially you when you are connecting with people at such a personal level, you are going to end up getting cut. It's just it just comes with the territory.
Right.
But before we get out of here, because I know like we've had so much time, thank you so much for even being a part of this.
Absolutely, Jeremiah. Absolutely.
I want to give a shout out to Ray Johnson and Reese's
Yes.
consultation leadership group who set this up. Like it's been great just meeting you and having this conversation. But I have one last question that I want to ask you before we head out. So you making it to the top level and you being successful in so many different areas. So how do you paint the picture to your team of a vision that you have, seeing that you have made it to the highest level, and how do you get them to buy into it?
There's different ways I do it. I do it through repetition, constantly preaching, our standard, the habits, the championship habits, and that be through my messaging, through our coaches' messaging, through visuals that I'll see on Twitter or the internet, a speech that I heard, a sermon that I heard that reinforces that, bringing in speakers that talks about these things. Like for example, this year we're going to learn life skills through drama. We're going to bring in someone that I've worked with in the past, and we're going to put situations that they've been in or might be in as student athletes and have them act it out in class. Want to break out in the workshops, talk about it. So they have a game plan, okay, in terms of decisions, consequences, and choices. And you have a game plan to know the situation, know the opponent, know the plan, and then execute that plan if you're in a certain situation. So that to me is a huge thing. So that's what I would say, man, is I forgot the question that you asked to
Sorry.
put the button on it, but that's what I would say if that if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, no, that makes sense. No, thank you. I forgot the question too.
Yeah.
Don't even worry.
Yeah.
No,
I went on down the
no,
rabbit's hole again. So,
no. This
but
has
that's
been
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
this has been such a pleasure just to get to know you and just see you in this light outside of just reminiscent of the glory days. It's great to see
Yes.
you at the present and the leader you are today. So thank you so much for being a part of the Prosper Brief.
Hey, it's been awesome, Jeremiah. Appreciate you.
We hope you found valuable takeaways to apply in your own organizations. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Prosper Brief on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time here on the Prosper Brief.